Okay, everybody, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Be'ezrat Hashem, tonight we will be continuing in chapter 19 of Sefer Mesilat Yesharim. We would like to dedicate tonight's learning for the complete and speedy recovery of Shachar ben Chana, Yaakov Yisrael Avram ben Chana Esther Helen, Mordechai ben Adina. May they all have a refuah shlema b'toch shar cholei Yisrael. All those who are ill should have a refuah shlema b'ezrat Hashem. And we should all see wonderful bracha from our learning tonight. So, right now, we're in the middle of chapter 19. And this is the discussion of Bi'ur Chelkei HaChasidut. We're talking about the idea of being a pious person, which means that, like we've been saying in the past, the person that we are discussing now is somebody who is not just happy with mediocrity. He's trying to climb the spiritual ladder, and he's trying to serve Hashem the best possible way that he can. And he's looking for ways to come closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's looking for ways to give nachat to Hashem, because he understands that that's really the ultimate reason why he's here. So right now, the Mesilat Yesharim is going to continue in this subject, and he's going to bring different ways that a person is able to go ahead and to serve Hashem on a higher level than merely what the halakha requires. So one very important example is the pasuk that tells us, Ze keli ve'anvehu. This is what it said when the Jewish people crossed the Sea of Reeds. It says over there that the Jewish people crossed the Sea of Reeds with a miraculous miracle that took place for them, that Hashem split the sea for them. They walked through it, they came out, and as they were praising Hashem, the following words came out of the mouth of the Jewish people, Ze keli, this is my God, ve'anvehu, and I will glorify him. Now over here, Chazal explained that the meaning of this pasuk is the following. Hitna'e lefanav b'mitzvot. The word ve'anvehu, which means I will glorify him, is another way of saying that we should make things na'eh, beautiful. Which means that a person, when performing a mitzvah, should give great honor to this mitzvah and not just be happy with the lowest grade, lowest quality of the mitzvah, but rather to do it in the best possible way. So therefore, says the Gemara, tzitzit na'a. When a person buys a talit, it should be a nice talit, beautiful talit. Tfilin na'eh, it should be the nicest tfilin with the best parshiot written on the inside, with the good writing, clear, legible, with all of the tagim that are there, all the crowns on the letters properly written. Sefer Torah na'eh. A person should buy a nice Sefer Torah if he can. It should be proper. It should be in the best possible way to glorify the mitzvah. Lulav na'eh. The lulav that the person uses should be na'eh, etc. In other words, do the mitzvah with the best possible way. In other words, give it your all. Put your effort into making the mitzvah super. That's the idea, says the Mesilat Yesharim. Not to be happy with, oh, I just did it, but rather, not that it's just good enough to do it, but I want to do it in the best possible way. I'll give you an example. I was speaking this week to somebody, and I was telling him the idea that when a person builds a synagogue, it has to be that the synagogue is built in the nicest possible way that you could build a synagogue. Because this is the house of Hashem. It's the house where HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to live in. And I told him, I said, a lot of people that, Baruch Hashem, we know are very well-to-do, and they build for themselves the most beautiful homes. And they have wonderful, wonderful, houses, places they could, the guest houses, places to host people, and big living rooms, dining rooms, etc. And everything is great. So I said, that's all fine. That's wonderful. But for some reason, when it comes to building the shul, everyone says, oh, no, the shul needs to be modest. It needs to be simple. It needs to be this and that. And everyone's, kind of shying away from being involved. And that is the wrong attitude. Because says the pasuk, Hakrivehu na lefechatecha. hayirtzecha o hayisa panecha, which means you always, the measuring stick, the way to determine if something is good for the sake of a mitzvah is, would you be happy with it if it was for yourself? Always. Would you be happy if this is what was coming your way? If somebody were to offer this to you, would it be good to you? This is a pasuk that's talking about people who are offering up sacrifices, but the sacrifices, they were all blemished. They brought an animal that was blind. They brought an animal that was lame. You're not supposed to do that, but people were doing that because they said, okay, what am I going to do with this thing anyway? Okay, give it to Bet HaMikdash, bring it to Hashem, so to say. And the pasuk is telling us in Malachi, would you be happy if somebody brought this to you as a gift? So the idea is that people, for some reason, think, oh, the shul has to be, the most humble. It can't be so extravagant, lavish, etc. But the truth of the matter is, it's the opposite. Your house doesn't have to be that lavish. Your house doesn't have to be that, bombastic, and it doesn't have to be a monster. But when it comes to the Bet HaMikdash, when it comes to the Bet HaKnesset, which is a miniature Bet HaMikdash, it has to be absolutely perfect. That's why you'll notice when it comes to the parashot we're learning now, you'll see this week's parasha and the previous parashot, everything in Bet HaMikdash many things in Bet HaMikdash were plated with gold. It has to be made with gold and the finest metals, finest materials. Everything has to be perfect. And the reason, again, is the same idea. Because Hashem is teaching us when it comes to doing a mitzvah, you don't get satisfied with, oh, this is good enough. No, the opposite. It has to be the best of the best. You have to want to bring the best of the best. That's why the Torah doesn't demand a certain amount from people, except with respect to one thing, the half silver coin for the sockets. But when it comes to everything else, it's whatever the person's heart desires to give. He has to want to give the gold. He has to want to give the silver or the hides or the different colors, all the different types of things that are necessary. But the point is that it has to be the best of the best. And that's the idea when it comes to mitzvot. Person can go cheap on the restaurant he chooses to go to and not go cheap on the mezuzah. The guy goes out with his wife, spends $300 at a restaurant, but it comes to a mezuzah, which is protecting his entire house from all evil, from all harm, from all disease, God forbid, that should never come into his home. The mezuzah, that's $80 for some reason is too much, but the $40 mezuzah, that one is the one to go with because, hey, it's still kosher. So, the idea is no. You want the one with the best writing, the clearest, everything is perfect, according to the halakha in the best possible way. All stringencies are met. It's a certain mindset where you understand that what I'm doing as far as mitzvot are concerned take much more serious priority as far as where I put my money, as opposed to my own personal indulgence. So this is a really important thing that the Mesilat Yesharim is telling us. She'en dai ba'asot ha'mitzvah levad. It's not enough just to do the mitzvah, says the Mesilat Yesharim. Kevan she'amitzvah na'aset lamita dai b'zeh. As though to say, since the mitzvah was performed, okay, that's enough. He says, no, that's not the right attitude. It says, a person who is minimizing his ability to do the mitzvah when he could have increased, that person is in Shamayim not viewed positively. It's like a sin almost. Again, he's not violating a particular halakha, but he's missing the boat. You're totally missing the point. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you the ability to buy a nice mezuzah that's perfect, then buy the nice mezuzah that's perfect and nice and beautiful and glorify the mitzvot. Make them beautiful. Make them precious. Make them special. Make a big to-do about it. Get a nice menorah for your Hanukkah candles. A nice menorah, that it should be nice and shiny, silver, beautiful. Chazal say, I heard a beautiful words from Reb Melech Biderman. He says, what does it mean when Chazal tell us, Haragil bener havyan lebanim talmidei chachamim? Chazal say in Masechet Shabbat that somebody who's accustomed to lighting candles, namely Chanukah candles and Shabbat candles, Rashi says, he will have children that are talmidei chachamim, meaning Torah scholars. So the question is, wait a second. A lot of us, Baruch Hashem, we light Shabbat candles, and many people light Hanukkah candles and Shabbat candles, and they do everything they have to do, but you find that their children are not Talmidei Chachamim. So how could the Gemara make such a promise and it doesn't come true? So explains Melech Birim, and that's not the point. The point of the Gemara is that when a person is Ragil Bener, meaning he's accustomed to making it into a whole big ordeal, he goes ahead and he buys a nice menorah. He buys nice candlesticks for his wife, that it should be the most beautiful, enjoyable experience to light Shabbat candles. He gets the nicest olive oil, and he has the kids standing there when he says the blessings, and they sing together, and they're happy, and he makes a whole big to-do about this mitzvah that he's doing. So that kind of person that shows his children that this is everything, this is the most important thing. Everything else is meaningless, but this mitzvah is what it's all about. So he makes a big fuss about this mitzvah, and he shows everyone how important it is. That's the kind of guy that his kids will be Talmidei Chachamim, because he's showing them what's important in life. That's the beautiful idea from a Melech Birim over here. So this is what the Mesilat is telling us. It's not enough just to be satisfied with being mediocre. No, I want to do more. I want to make it the best that it could possibly be. Hashem doesn't expect more than what you can do. If you can buy only a $40 mezuzah, okay, then that's all you can do. Hashem will never expect you to do more than what you are able to do. But many, many times we'll find that if we seriously check ourselves, we seriously look inside and ask ourselves, could I have bought the $80 mezuzah? Could I have maybe saved a little bit on a few times of eating, in a fancy restaurant, and maybe purchased a nicer mezuzah or a nicer pair of tefillin? Maybe I could have saved and done better. You'll find, I think, many times that the answer is we could have done better. Again, I'm talking to myself as well. Whenever we learn Mesilat Yesharim, I'm not just preaching to everybody and not talking to myself too. I'm equally in this together with everybody. So I think that this is something we should look at. Exactly, this is what he's talking about. And he gives you an example. The first time that this kind of concept comes about is in actually Parashat Bereshit, where Cain and Hevel both offer up offerings to Hashem. And it says that Cain gave an offering, but it was mina psolet. It was from junk. It was psolet mi pri adama. It wasn't such good stuff. It was the junk of the refuse of the fruits of the ground. And when it came to Hevel, on the other hand, Hevel brought the best of his sheep and their fats, and he gave a really special offering to Hashem. And it says that Vayisha Hashem el Hevel milchato. Hashem turned towards Hevel and, so to say, received Hevel's offering. Vel Kain vel milchato lo sha'an. Hashem did not like Kain's offering. It wasn't interesting to Hashem, because when a person shows Hashem that he's in it all the way, I'm in 100%. I give you the best of what I can give, because I understand that anyway all of it comes from you. So this is the least that I could do. This is the very minimum that I can do. And I wish I could do more. So when somebody has that glowing attitude, Hashem sees that the heart of that person is in the right place. And that's what makes Hashem want to turn to that person and accept what he's offering. But if you give Hashem something that is garbage, basically, so Hashem says, I don't need garbage. I'll never forget, I once heard a rabbi get up and say that somebody called him up and offered him a car. He says, I want to donate this car to the synagogue. He says, great. He says, what kind of car is it? How's it run? How many miles? He says, it doesn't work. Okay, the car doesn't work. Is it easy? No, the car, it doesn't work at all. So he says, so what am I going to do with the car? He says, what do you mean? I'm donating the car to you. He says, but why would I want a car that doesn't work? and there was a back and forth. The guy was surprised that this rabbi wasn't willing to accept the car that doesn't work. He says, but what am I supposed to do with this car? I don't understand. In other words, you're already coming to donate something. Donate something I could use. Sell the car and give me the cash. Just do something with it. but what are you giving me a car that doesn't work for? So, again, people have this kind of attitude that, to the shul, give them all the old pairs of tzitzit that we don't use anymore. It's like it's the wrong attitude. It's not the right way of thinking. Okay, so this, by the way, comes up in a lot of different places. We find this when it came to the bikurim. It says that when the people brought up the first fruits to Yerushalayim, there's a mitzvah called bikurim, the first fruits of the 7 species. You have to bring up to Yerushalayim and bring it to the Kohen, put it in a basket, put it in front of the Mizbeach. It was a whole big ordeal. They had this ox that they tied gold around its horns, and they were singing and dancing, and they had beautiful baskets that they brought the bikurim in. Again, it's a concept of I'm doing this mitzvah, but not just doing it, but I'm beautifying it, I'm glorifying it. That's the goal. That's the way to go ahead and do it. That's what the Mesilat Yesharim brings down. There are levels of doing mitzvot. I'll just give you another example. The Gemara tells us that Rabbi Tarfon was extremely, extremely careful to honor his mother. He was very careful in honoring his mother. One time, it says in the Gemara that the strap of his mother's sandal was cut, and therefore she couldn't use it as a shoe. So Rabbi Tarfon got on his knees and he put his hands underneath her feet, so that whenever she would walk on his hands, and her feet shouldn't touch the ground. Also, he used to get down. In order for her to come off of her bed, she would climb on him and she would come off. And going back up on the bed, he would do the same thing. And there was one occasion where she was together with the colleagues of Rabbi Tarfon, and she told the colleagues of Rabbi Tarfon, my son, Rabbi Tarfon, he please tell him to relax a little bit. He gives me way too much honor. And they asked her, what are you talking about? And she told him, she told them all the things that he does. And they said, you should know that even after all this, he hasn't even reached half of the honor that is due to you. That's what they told him. In other words, this is something that, again, the halacha doesn't necessarily require this, but the person who wants to do the mitzvah, he'll do whatever it takes to do the mitzvah. He'll do it with fire, with enthusiasm. He'll find the opportunity to give the kavod to his parents. He'll make it work out somehow that he should be able to do that. Okay, so now, that's the general concept. Now the Mesilat Yesharim wants to apply it to different areas of observance. And the first place that he goes to is when it comes to Shabbat and Yom Tov. Because the Pasuk tells us in Yeshayahu that when it comes to Shabbat, it shouldn't just be that you're keeping Shabbat, you're not just doing melacha. Of course, you have to know what is considered melacha, what is not considered melacha, what are the 39 forbidden labors and all the different rules that come out as a result of them. But then there is another level. Then the Pasuk comes and tells you, V'chibadeto. V'chibadeto me'asod derachecha mimtzo chefzecha v'daber davar. V'chibadeto means, and you shall honor the Shabbat. Not only shall you observe the Shabbat, but there's a special mitzvah to give kavod to the Shabbat. And the Mesilat Yesharim brings down a sugya in Masechet Shabbat, where it goes through the long list of rabbis, and each job that each rabbi would do on his own, in spite of the fact that he had plenty of members of his household who could have done this job, he went ahead and would do it himself because he wanted himself to do the mitzvah in order to personally show honor for Shabbat. So, for example, says the Gemara, Rabbi Abahu havayatel atachtaka deshina umenashev nura. Rabbi Abahu used to sit on a chair and he would fan the flame in honor of Shabbat. Rav Safra machrich resha. Rav Safra used to take the head of an animal and he would roast it himself in order to prepare it for Shabbat. Rava malach shibuta. Rava used to take the fish and he would salt it himself. Rav Huna madlik shraga. Rav Huna used to light candles in honor of Shabbat. Rav Papa gadil petilta. Rav Papa used to create the wicks in honor of Shabbat. Rav Chizda parim silka. Rav Chizda used to cut the the beats in honor of Shabbat. All the different rabbis had some kind of job that they would not allow anybody else to do because they wanted themselves to partake of the holiness. Because they know that when a person shows honor to Shabbat, they are drawing down upon themselves a tremendous level of holiness. And this is the idea. The Gemara says something very interesting as well. It says that Rav Nachman mechatef ve'ayil mechatef ve'nafik. Rav Nachman would schlep things on his shoulder coming in and going out. He would bring things home. He would take things out. And again, we're dealing with Rav Nachman, who was considered to be like royalty. He was somebody who was close to the Reish Galuta. I believe he might have been even his son-in-law, the exilarch. He was a kind of nobility. And usually these people don't do these things. But no, in honor of Shabbat, who am I? I have to show honor to Shabbat. And he said, Ilu mikal'in li Rabbi Ami v'Rav Asi, milo mechatifna kamayhu. He said, if the great rabbis, Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi, would come to me and they would come pay me a visit, would I not carry things for them in their honor? So says the Mesilat Yesharim, look at what he's doing. He's trying to teach us a lesson. The way that you have to treat mitzvot is in a way that you can understand, you can personally identify with that. He's treating the mitzvah of honoring Shabbat in a tangible way. He's saying to himself, how would I act if a great rabbi came to my presence, came to my home? Would I not carry things for him in his honor? Would I not move things in and out? Of course I would. So then how much more so when it's not just the great rabbi, but it's the holy Shabbat Kodesh, the Sabbath queen coming to me. Shouldn't I go and honor that Shabbat queen by carrying things in and out? Who am I not to show that honor to the Shabbat Malketa? That's the idea. That's the proper attitude. That's what I was trying to say in previous weeks. I believe last week or 2 weeks ago, I had mentioned the idea when somebody comes to shul, you have to think in a tangible way. If I were to be at a meeting with the President of the United States of America, would I get dressed up in a shorts and t-shirt or with a sweatpants and t-shirt? It doesn't make sense. It's not possible. You would never do that. At the very least, maybe it would be a casual meeting. You'd wear a shirt and pants, right? You have to think about the mitzvot in a way that's tangible. That's the key. Something that you can relate to. And over here, Rav Nachman is explaining to us, if somebody like these great rabbis would come, wouldn't you do these actions for them? Of course you would. So for Shabbat, you're not going to do it. We have to look at them in a way that we can relate to it. That's how you look at these mitzvot. So therefore, think about it in this way, says the Mesilat Yesharim. Think about how holy HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. And think about the idea that he's given us the chance. He has shared with us such a great honor that he has given over to us these holy mitzvot. He has handed them to us and he has given them over to us. So he says, lefachot, the very least is that we should perform them bechol kochenu, that we should do them with all of our strength. Nechabdem, we should give them honor. V'nir'eh hayakar asher lahem etzlenu, we should demonstrate in a certain way that just how precious these mitzvot are to us. That's the proper attitude. To show, you have to have a certain understanding. Just like if a person was given the opportunity to go into the White House, he's given the opportunity to go into the palace of the king. It's a very precious opportunity, and he has to respect it. If the guy shows up in a hoodie and sweatpants, you're not showing respect, right? You're not showing that it really means much to you. So our job is to say, wow, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a connection, a relationship. We have to show it, to give it the proper respect. That's what the Mesilat Yesharim is telling us over here. He says, one of the rabbis that was mentioned in that Gemara, in Masechet Shabbat, Daf Kuf Yutet Amud Aleph, is Rav Anan. Rav Anan Lavish Gunda. Rav Anan wore a simple black garment as he was preparing for Shabbat. Dehainu, explains the Mesilat Yesharim, Haya lovesh beged shachor be'erev Shabbat. He wore a very plain black garment. Why? so that when he changes into his Shabbat clothing on Friday night, that he's wearing this beautiful clothing, it's so clear and so evident and so it's very obvious that such a big change happened. And he wanted that contrast to take place on Shabbat, that it should be clear, wow, that was weekday and this is Shabbat. It's very different. Kidei sheyeh nikar yoter kvod haShabbat belovsho bo bgadim na'im. He wanted it to be so clear, the difference between a weekday and Shabbat, that on Friday he wore the simple black clothing that really didn't, give him much honor at all. So that when Shabbat kicked in, he had the most beautiful clothing and he gave it the most beautiful kavod, honor for Shabbat. V'chen asru, so too, he says, that's why on Friday afternoon we're not supposed to have a big meal, because that would be disrespectful for Shabbat. You have to show that, no, Friday afternoon, maybe I even skip lunch. Why? So that when Shabbat comes, I'm eating with enjoyment, with an appetite, to give that honor to Shabbat. So this is a very important thing. With respect to Shabbat, I think it's important to say, I know that a lot of people that are Shabbat observing people, a lot of times you'll find that people don't realize that certain things or certain activities are not in the spirit of the law of Shabbat. They're not in the spirit of Shabbat. Chazal tell us that lo nitnu Shabbatot v'yamim tovim liYisrael ela kedei lilmod behem Torah. The idea of Shabbat and Yom Tov in general, as far as at least men are concerned, is that we should be involved in learning Torah. It's a time where we don't have to worry about anything. We don't have to worry about phone calls, voicemails, emails, texts, and all these things. We're totally removed from all of that. And it's a time where you can just sit down and learn. You can learn Torah with your children. You can learn Torah with your spouse. You can be involved in spiritual pursuits, worry-free, headache-free from the rest of the 6 days of the week where you're involved in so many other things. That's really the focus of Shabbat, that you disconnect from everything else and you connect to Hashem instead. A lot of people find themselves on Shabbat doing things that are taking them away from that. For example, again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't play games on Shabbat at home. If you want to play a game with your family members, enjoy, have a nice time playing your game. But a lot of times, for example, the kids will go play basketball on Shabbat. So basketball is something that ever since I was young, all the rabbis always told us that playing basketball on Shabbat is not in the spirit of Shabbat. You're kind of missing the boat. You're running, you're sweating, you're exercising, you're competing. These are things that are not the spirit of the law, of the day, rather. It's not the spirit of the day of Shabbat. It's missing the boat. Definitely, kal v'chomer, when it comes to people that find themselves in the public pool on Shabbat. I mean, that's something which you can, you best your bet that is probably something which we would call uvdin dechor, a weekday activity. This is something which, again, I'm not saying that on a weekday it's okay if it's not a sanua arrangement either. But at the same time, what I'm trying to point out is, as far as Shabbat is concerned, you're kind of missing the boat on Shabbat. That Shabbat is there for spiritual growth. It's there to have time with your family. It's there to rest. And all these things that a person is doing and that's taking him away from that, that's not giving the proper honor to Shabbat. So it's important to ask ourselves, what is the activity that we have planned for Shabbat? We have a couple of hours. What do we want to find ourselves doing? How are we planning for this? We don't want to, God forbid, not only not desecrate Shabbat, Khalila, but also to do things that are not in the spirit of Shabbat. That's what the Mesilat is talking about. He says we have to give kavod, we have to give honor to Shabbat. We can't just push the limits and show, oh, this Shabbat, God forbid, is like a burden to us, but at least we can do this and at least we can do that, and we push it to the edge. No, you're missing the boat. Shabbat is there in order for you to rest, to relax, to not have to worry about going to swim and about having to play basketball with friends. You don't have to worry about all these things. Now you can connect with Borei Olam. That's the key. It should be the biggest enjoyment for us, not, God forbid, to be viewed as a problem. So therefore, it's all about the proper attitude, and it's about the idea that we have to give the proper respect to Shabbat, that Hashem gave us this precious day, as it says in Chazal, that when Hashem gave us the Shabbat, He told Moshe, "Matana tova yesh li bebet knazai v'Shabbat shema." I have a special gift in my treasure house, and it's called Shabbat. This is a gift from Hashem. You can guarantee yourself, if God gives you a gift, there's nothing better than this gift. And therefore, us keeping Shabbat should be viewed as the biggest blessing that we have. And therefore, we have to give it the proper respect. So instead of trying to see how much we can go push the limits of, is this still called keeping Shabbat? But rather the opposite, try and get the main point of Shabbat. Understand that every minute is so precious and use it in the best possible way. Okay. Says the Mesilat Yesharim, another area where we must give kavod, where we must give the extra level of respect, is to give kavod to the Torah itself, and to give kavod to those who learn the Torah, to those who study the Torah. As it says in Pirkei Avot, Kol hamechabed et haTorah, gufo mechubad al haberiyot, which means whoever gives honor to the Torah, then Hashem will make sure that people will give him honor as well. The Amru Zichrono Livracha, very interesting Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, mipnei ma zacha Achav lemalchut 22 shana. Why is it that King Achav, who was not the most righteous of kings, King Achav was a king that was involved in idol worship. He disrespected Eliyahu Hanavi. We're talking about not somebody that is the most righteous of kings. He had the whole story with Navot, how his wife caused the death of this man that he should be able to steal his vineyard. This man was not the most kosher of people, but still he merited to be the king of Israel for 22 years. Why did he get that? Says the Mesilat Yesharim. The Gemara tells us because of a very interesting story. There was a king by the name of Hadar, Malachi ben Hadar. It says the following: King Hadar had about 23 other kings that came with him to attack Israel. Now, he gave King Achav a chance in the beginning, and he said, listen, I don't need to kill your kingdom. As a matter of fact, I can leave you in your position. But he said, one condition, I'm going to send my people into your palace, and they are going to walk in, and if they see something that they like, they get to take it. Whatever it is that they see, they want it, no problem. Okay. So Achav said, okay, sounds like a pretty good deal. Now, then the king sends back to King Achav another group of messengers. Now, it says, Vayishlach malachim el Achav v'gomer. And it says now one added provision. He says, you're agreeing to my deal? Fine. There's one more point. V'aya kol machmad einecha yasimu be'adam velakachu. It shall be that anything that is machmad einecha, meaning anything that is prized in your eyes, anything, whatever that may be, they will put in their hands and they will take it. And at this point, it says that Achav sends back messengers and he says to them, listen, the first request that you had, no problem. You want gold, you want silver, you want money, you want whatever you want, come in, take it. We have a deal. You are in charge over here. I'm in charge of the country, but fine. You want to be on top of me? Okay, no problem. Now you requested for machmad einai, that which is desirable in my eyes. He says, once you requested that, I can't do that. Hadavar hazeh lo uchal la'asot. This matter I cannot do. And then at that point, they heard the message back from King Achav and they started to attack. At this point, King Achav received the word from a prophet that he should wage war on them and he'll win against many kings, dozens of kings. And he won. What happened? Says the Gemara, "My machmad enecha." What was the message that they were saying? The message that they were saying is that not only are they interested in the gold and the silver and all these things, but they were telling King Achav that we also want machmad enecha, that which is precious in your eyes, which is your Sefer Torah. We want to take your Sefer Torah. My machmad enecha, love Sefer Torah. What does it mean, that which is precious in your eyes? Is it not referring, says the Gemara, to a Sefer Torah? And because Achav got up and defended the honor of the Torah, and he said, listen, when it comes to gold, it comes to silver, it comes to whatever other things you want from my palace, come and take it, I could care less. But you want to touch my Sefer Torah? No. The answer is no. And at that point, Achav earned the blessing of Hashem that he's going to go and wage war against them and win them, and he did. So over here we see again, the honor that King Achav gave to the Sefer Torah is what got him his blessing. And that's always the way that it's going to be. Person has to give the proper kavod to Sefer Torah. The Gemara says a person's traveling from place to place, he shouldn't just put it on the donkey and have the donkey carry it, but rather, manicho b'cheiko, he's supposed to hold it in his lap and carry it that way to give it the proper kavod. Person should not sit on a couch where the Sefer Torah is. You cannot do that. You have to treat it with the most respect. This is the holiest thing that we've got. You have to give it the utmost respect. And so too when it comes to the Chumashim and the Tanakh, says the Gemara in Masechet Megillah, Asru lehaniach nevi'im uktuvim al gabe Chumashim. The rabbis prohibited from us putting nevi'im uktuvim, which is the latter part of the Tanakh, on top of a chumash. They said, no, that's not kavod for the chumash. I once asked my Rebbe, Rabbi Belsky, alav shalom, how far does this go? So if I have a chumash, then I cannot put a navi, which means the later books of the Tanakh, on top of the chumash. Okay, fine, no problem. So what about, let's say, when it comes to other books, let's say a Mishnah? Can I put a Mishnah on top of a Tanakh, or does a Tanakh have to be on top of a Mishnah? The general idea, Rabbi Belsky explained, is that we don't put Torah shebe'al peh on top of Torah shebichtav, which means anything from the oral Torah, Mishnah, Gemara, Mefarshim, anything like that, we don't put on top of a book that is from the written Torah, from the Tanakh. So, again, this is all in terms of giving honor, giving kavod to the Sfarim HaKadoshim. Another very important, we have to know the rules. A person's not allowed to have relations with his wife in front of the Sifrei Tanakh or any Sfarim Kadoshim. Or if there's any tefillin in the room, or if there's a mezuzah in the room, the mezuzah has to be covered. It's better to make sure the mezuzah is outside the door, right? You shouldn't be changing babies' diapers in front of the Sfarim. You have to give it the proper kavod. Again, anything you do to show respect, to show honor to these Sfarim HaKadoshim, that shows Hashem that you really care, that you really understand the importance and the significance of these Sfarim HaKadoshim. So that's why it's so important. And everything that you can do in order to show that, it goes a very long way. Okay. Beinyan Lomdei Torah explains the Mesilat Yesharim. When it comes to those who study Torah, we have to make sure that we give them the proper respect. It says, Ve'et yir'ei Hashem yechabed. Those that fear Hashem, we must give them honor. Says the Gemara, amazing. This refers to Yehoshaphat Melech Yehuda. This again is a king. Yehoshaphat, the king of Yehuda. Shekevan she'aya ro'eh talmid chacham. When he would see a Torah scholar, haya omed mikiso, he would stand up from his chair. This is the king. Umechabko, he would hug this talmid chacham. Umenashko, and he would kiss this talmid chacham. Ve'omerlo, he would say to him, Rabbi, Rabbi, my teacher, my master, my master. Mori, Mori, my teacher, my teacher. Again, this is a king in Am Yisrael. He does not need to stand up for a single human being. He is the king. But the idea is that he understood that when he stands up for a Talmid Chacham, he's not just standing up for the Talmid Chacham, he's standing up for the Torah. He's standing up for Hashem who gave the Torah. We must give the proper respect for the Talmidei Chachamim. And God forbid, to disrespect them. A person has to be careful at home when they speak about rabbis. Many times a person will not realize, but they find themselves saying things about different Rashi Yeshivot and things like that, in a very nonchalant type of manner, very cavalier. This rabbi, what does he know already? This Rosh Yeshiva, he's not like they used to be. This so-and-so, it's not, I tried to go through a sugya with him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Things like that, when you dismiss a rabbi in the presence of children, they look at that and they say, okay, my father doesn't have respect for them, so why should I have respect for them? Why should I try and be like them? But a person that the opposite, he's like Yehoshaphat. He sees a Talmid Chacham, he stands up, he hugs him, he kisses him. He says, my master, my teacher. He shows him honor. So he has much more of a chance of having his children be the same way. That's why it says in Chazal that man demuki rabbanan, the man that gives honor to the rabbis, havyan le banim talmidei chachamim. He will have children that are talmidei chachamim. Why? Because he shows his son and his whole family that there's nobody that I respect more than a person that represents HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's a very important thing. There's an interesting Gemara about Hillel. Hillel was known to be one of the most humble men alive. The Gemara says a person should always be anavtan ke Hillel. He should always be a humble man like Hillel. There was somebody that decided to try and go ask him a million questions on a Friday afternoon under a lot of pressure, and he was trying to get him to be upset, and Hillel would never be upset. He was always so humble, trying to say, oh, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Again, he was the Nasi of Am Yisrael. He was very humble. Nobody could get him mad. Nobody could make him upset. He was so just interested in helping anybody. It doesn't matter who he was or what he was asking. And then the Gemara comes with a very interesting discussion about how it used to be on Simchat Bet HaShoeva. It says that in the Bet HaMikdash, there was a very incredible holiday on Sukkot when they were pouring the water libations for the Bet HaMikdash as a service to Hashem. So they had a tremendous gathering, tremendous celebration. This was called Simchat Bet HaShoeva. And then it says that when Hillel would come, he would say something really, really astonishing. He would say, Imani kan, hakol kan. If I am here, everything is here. Which means that, in other words, once I show up, that's it. This is the pinnacle. The party is, I'm here. Imani kan, hakol kan. If I'm here, everything is here. And if not, he says, there's nothing here. Wait a second, Hillel, what happened to your humility? What happened to your to being so humble? If I'm here, everything is here. What does that mean, Hillel? And I heard a beautiful pshat from Rabbi Leib Kelemen Shlita, very interesting pshat. He says that Hillel understood that there is no such thing as me. When somebody reaches the level of a true Talmid Chacham, there is no me anymore. There's no I. I am now a vessel. I am a receptacle for Torah. I'm a container of Torah. In the case of Hillel being the leader of the tribe of Klal Yisrael, the Nasi of Am Yisrael, he's not just a person anymore, but rather he is a human representation of Borei Olam. When he says, if I'm here, everything is here, he understands there is no me. I am a representative of Hashem. I'm null and void. I'm nothing. I'm nullified. I am the physical sense, so to say, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu could be here in a certain way, so to say, it would be through me, because I made myself a full Torah scholar with nothing else besides for Kedusha inside of me. So if I'm here, that means that, so to say, means Hashem is here. which is why, if God forbid somebody were to play with that, were to disrespect that, that's playing with fire. That's a big mistake. And there are unfortunately many people that have learned that lesson the hard way. We could go through story after story about that. But the point is, Rabotai, that this really is an important point to remember. The Talmidei Chachamim that we have in every generation are representing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when we, God forbid, disrespect that, that's not just disrespecting them. It's not them. They have become an embodiment of Torah. So it's a direct, God forbid, attack against the Torah. And that's why it's so severe. So it's important for us to understand that. Rabbi Zera, the great Rabbi Zera in the Talmud, when he was tired from his learning, very interesting Gemara. When he was tired and he didn't have strength to learn anymore, you know what he would do? He would go and sit at the entrance to the Bet Midrash, because he knew that at a certain point the rabbis would be leaving the Bet Midrash, and he would have the opportunity to stand up for them. And he specifically went there in order that he should at least, even though he can't learn, but at least he should have the zechut to give kavod to those who do learn. And this is how, when a person shows these types of behaviors, then you have no doubt that Hashem is happy, because Hashem sees that you're trying to give honor to the Torah. You're trying to give honor to the Talmidei Chachamim. This is what is so desired by Hashem. How much more so when it comes to a shul? Not more so, but also as well, when it comes to Bet HaKnesset. Bichlal zeh, says the Mesilat Yesharim, Kmo chen kibud Bet HaKnesset u Bet HaMidrash. He says when it comes to Bet HaKnesset, Bet HaMidrash, it's so important as well to give the respect that's necessary. Because a lot of times people forget about just chit-chatting, schmoozing in shul. He says, it should not be enough for you that you just don't speak during the prayer, right? And you don't behave with a lightheaded manner. But rather, person should try and find ways to show extra honor to this location, that this is not just any ordinary space, any ordinary place, but rather this is a house for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. For example, I saw a beautiful minhag that I haven't personally adopted, but I think it's very nice. And that is that there are some people that when they walk out of the synagogue, they don't turn around and walk out, but rather they bow their way out while still facing their own Kodesh, to show respect, as if to say, I'm not going to give my back to their own Kodesh because it's not correct. I want to give the kavod. I walk out still facing it. Again, I'm not saying that I personally do it, but I'm praising the people that have adopted the custom, because they're doing it out of respect and honor for the shul. The attitude has to be that right now, imagine, again, something relatable. Imagine you are in a palace of a king. You are presently in the palace of a king. For example, let's say you're in the palace of the king of Saudi Arabia. You're in the palace of the king of United Arab Emirates, where they still have kings. You're in a palace. You realize this is not an ordinary place. You don't just goof off over here. You don't just laugh your head off. You don't just crack a joke. This is a special place. The Pele Yoetz has a whole long piece about it. As we say, a lot of people have a minhag when they come in, and they say, "Va'ani b'rov chazdecha avo betecha eshtachave lechal kochecha biratecha," which means, and I, b'rov chazdecha, because of your abundant kindness, Hashem, avo betecha. That's the only reason I can come into your home, because you have been so kind to me to give me the opportunity to set foot into a shul. The Pele Yoetz explains the sanctity of a shul is so intense and so incredible that none of us would have the ability, would be given clearance to enter into a synagogue. None of us have we don't deserve it, basically. We don't deserve the right to enter into any synagogue because of the intense level of Kedusha that exists in that synagogue. Now, Why then do we have the right? So explains the Pele Yoetz, the only reason that we're allowed to walk into a shul is because of the fact that we have the zechut of avot. Vani, berov chazdecha, and I, because of your abundant kindness, says the Pele Yoetz, the word kindness refers to Avraham Avinu, who was the master of chesed, of kindness to other people. Avo beitecha, I come to your home. Eshtachavei lechal kodshecha, I bow down to the ark of your holiness. That refers to Yaakov Avinu, who was the highest level of holiness. Be'yiratecha, with your fear, which refers to Yitzchak Avinu, who was the ultimate in fear of Hashem. He worked so hard on fearing God. So only because of our three forefathers that gave us the chance to be proper Jews, only in their merit do we have the right to walk into a shul. If not, we wouldn't have the zechut. That's a beautiful explanation from the Pele Yoetz. So here we are walking in, we come in, we leave, we chit chat, we shmooze. But you have to remember, there is a tremendous thing happening over here. There's a huge ordeal taking place. And that is that right now you're setting foot into the palace of the king. The palace of the king. Again, we don't think about it. We think, I'm going to shul, I'm leaving shul, I'm coming. But no, we have to remember that this is not simple. This is a very, very important thing that we have to remember. Okay, so this is all with respect to honor of the shul, honor of Talmidei Chachamim, honor of the Sifrei Torah, honor of the books of Torah, honor of Shabbat. A person has to find the opportunity to give honor, to do things, to do mitzvot with love, with enthusiasm, with excitement, with honor in the best possible way. I believe that it's worthwhile for us to stop here because now the Mesilat Hashem is going into a next subject. Be'ezrat Hashem, we will continue Bli Neder, not next week. I'm not here next week, but Be'ezrat Hashem, the following week, we will continue Bli Neder. Thank you all for joining us. Chazakim Bruchim. And if we have any questions, everyone's welcome to either text me, email me if you'd like. Only good news, everybody. Quote.
Thank you.